Hold on. Everything you've been told about death is wrong. It's not an ending, not a void, not some mystery left to blind faith or wild speculation. For over 1,000 years, concealed within a forbidden manuscript, lies a genuine roadmap. A roadmap detailing precisely what unfolds in those crucial first 49 days after we die. This ancient text, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, wasn't for just anyone, oh no. It was once solely for the most enlightened minds, for those rare individuals who could grasp its profound truth without succumbing to fear. It unveils a shocking reality. The moment of death isn't the final breath at all. It's the very start of a test. A test that will decide everything. Will you shatter the chains of the life-death cycle? Or will you stumble back into reincarnation, utterly blind and utterly unprepared? Most people fail this ultimate exam, not because they lack strength, but because they lack awareness. They simply don't recognize what's happening to them. They can't see through the shimmering illusions. They fail to grasp that everything they sense, every feeling, every sight, every sound, after death is merely a projection conjured by their own minds. And by the time they finally realize this monumental truth, it's far too late. If this ancient manuscript speaks truly, then those initial moments after death, they hold more weight, more significance than the entire life you just lived. And it all kicks off with one absolutely critical moment, the instant you shed your physical form, the moment you breathe your last. Reality doesn't just grind to a halt. You don't simply vanish into thin air. Instead, something else entirely takes control. Something that ancient texts have whispered about for over 1,000 years. You'll feel weightless, detached, almost as if you're stirring from a vivid dream. Your heart will no longer beat. Your lungs will no longer draw breath. Yet, incredibly, you will still be conscious. You'll know, deep down, that something fundamental has shifted. But your mind? Oh, it will fight tooth and nail to accept this bizarre new reality. Have you ever experienced an out-of-body sensation? This moment will feel eerily, unsettlingly familiar. Except for one terrifying difference, there's no coming back this time. And then, brace yourself. It happens. A light. Blinding. Radiant. So incredibly potent, so utterly overwhelming, that your very sense of self seems to dissolve within it. This, my friends, is what the Tibetan Book of the Dead reverently calls the clear light of reality. If you can recognize it, if you can completely surrender to its incandescent embrace, you will merge with it. You will shatter the endless cycle of birth and death. You will achieve instant, profound enlightenment. You will escape the relentless wheel of reincarnation forever. This is the ultimate moment of liberation, and it strikes the very instant you die. But why does almost no one recognize this pivotal moment? Why? Because we are all conditioned, from the moment we're born, to fear the great unknown. The soul panics. It desperately clings to its fading memories, to its fragile sense of identity, to all those unfinished desires that still tug at its essence. Instead of welcoming the radiant light, it recoils in terror. And the very instant that fear takes hold, that's when the illusions begin to materialize. You'll start to hear sounds, faint whispers, distorted echoes of voices that feel strangely familiar, yet muffled, as if calling from behind a thick veil. The world around you will begin to warp and shift. And instead of that brilliant light, you'll start to perceive shapes, eerie patterns, flickering shadows, fleeting glimpses of what appear to be people or places you once knew. But hold on, none of it is real. Not yet. Your mind, in its confusion, is desperately grasping for something solid. It's frantically searching for meaning in this bewildering new state. And in its desperate attempt to make sense of it all, it begins to conjure the very reality that will define the rest of its post-death journey. This is the treacherous point where most souls tragically lose their way. Instead of recognizing death as the golden opportunity for ultimate liberation that it truly is, they stumble into utter confusion. They desperately seek solace in the familiar. And their ever-obliging mind? It readily complies, projecting the world they once inhabited, recreating familiar scenes, conjuring up recognizable faces and voices. Some poor souls even see religious figures they devoutly worshipped in life, never realizing, not for a single moment, that these comforting apparitions are nothing more than manifestations of their own deeply ingrained subconscious beliefs. If only they knew the truth. If only they understood that none of it is genuine, that they are, in fact, being tested, they could simply let go. But instead, they blindly follow these deceptive visions deeper and deeper into the bardo, that mysterious intermediate state that lies between death and rebirth. Those initial few moments after death, they are paramount, absolutely crucial. The Tibetan Book of the Dead emphatically teaches that awareness is the ultimate key, that those who have diligently prepared for this extraordinary moment can pierce through the shimmering illusions and finally break free. But for the unprepared, for those who stubbornly cling to the remnants of their past lives, what comes next is utterly unavoidable. They will inexorably journey through the 49-day process, experiencing a series of profound visions that will either guide them towards glorious enlightenment or tragically ensnare them in yet another agonizing cycle of rebirth. The next breathtaking phase of this incredible journey is about to unfold. But before we delve any deeper into the forbidden knowledge of the bardo, you absolutely must understand this. Some of the most profound, life-altering truths about the afterlife simply cannot be shared openly. That's precisely why we unveil them within Insights Academy, our exclusive, free newsletter where we fearlessly explore the very topics that are often deemed unspeakable. Sign up right now via the link nestled in the description below and receive a complimentary copy of the Kalin, a timeless book of hidden wisdom that has been meticulously studied for centuries. The bardo patiently awaits. The illusions are beginning to take shape, and your incredible journey through the enigmatic realm between worlds, it's only just beginning. You are now in the bardo, that liminal space suspended between your past life and your next existence. Time itself no longer flows in the predictable way it did when you were alive. Seconds can stretch into what feels like an eternity, yet entire days can vanish in the blink of an eye. You possess no physical body, no voice to speak, only pure, unadulterated awareness. But here's the colossal problem. Most people utterly fail to realize they have actually died. They remain trapped in a hazy, dreamlike state, desperately clinging to the fading echoes of their past life, utterly unable to accept the monumental truth that everything they once knew, everything they held dear, is now irrevocably gone. The Tibetan Book of the Dead vividly describes the bardo as a constantly shifting, utterly unstable realm, a bizarre place where the very fabric of reality bends and distorts, where your thoughts possess tangible power, instantly manifesting into concrete forms, and where your own mind, unbelievably, becomes the sole architect of your entire experience. Every buried fear, every secret desire, every deeply hidden emotion that you suppressed in life now bursts forth, taking on a vivid, often terrifying, form. Your journey through this extraordinary realm will last precisely 49 days. A meticulously structured process that unfolds in distinct stages. And for the vast majority of souls, it is an experience of pure, unadulterated terror. In the initial stages, utter confusion reigns. The bewildered soul instinctively tries to return home, to its beloved family, to its dearest friends. It aimlessly lingers around familiar places, frantically trying to speak, desperately trying to be seen. But alas, no one responds. No one can hear its desperate pleas. And slowly, agonizingly, the crushing realization begins to dawn. This isn't a fleeting dream. This is death. But even then, the stubborn mind fiercely resists. It desperately clings to its former identity, utterly refusing to accept the seemingly impossible truth. It frantically seeks comfort, logical explanations, any flimsy thing to desperately hold on to. But the bardo offers no such comfort. It is not a peaceful resting place. It is a turbulent zone of profound transition, a place where the naked soul must confront its truest self, stripped bare of all earthly pretenses. At first, the experience can feel surprisingly neutral, even strangely peaceful. There is no lingering physical pain, no earthly suffering, only a profound sense of pure awareness. Some who have glimpsed this stage describe it as serenely floating through an immeasurably vast, utterly open expanse. A formless void where your thoughts gently ripple outwards, like silent waves in an infinite ocean. But then, ever so gradually, visions begin to coalesce. The very first visions are often gentle and strangely welcoming. Beautiful, radiant beings begin to appear. What some might instinctively interpret as benevolent angels, wise, enlightened masters, or even divine guides. These luminous figures emanate an overwhelming sense of warmth, profound wisdom, and an all-encompassing, palpable peace. They seem to offer a clear path out, a direct route to ultimate transcendence. But here's the crucial point. The soul must recognize these radiant beings for what they truly are, nothing more than shimmering reflections of its own higher consciousness. If the soul possesses the clarity and insight to understand this profound truth, it can effortlessly merge with them, dissolving into a state of heightened awareness, finally shattering the endless cycle of reincarnation forever. But tragically, most souls don't. They hesitate. They succumb to doubt. And in this delicate realm, even the slightest hesitation is all it takes. The visions begin to subtly shift. The radiant beings start to fade. And in their place, ominous shadows begin to creep in. The once peaceful forms twist and contort. Their serene faces morph into grotesque, terrifying expressions. The once soothing voices transform into chilling whispers of doubt and paralyzing fear. What initially seemed like a blissful paradise begins to warp and twist into something altogether darker. This marks the arrival of the next critical stage of the bardo, the perilous test of illusions. These terrifying figures that now confront the soul are not malevolent demons. They are not some form of divine punishment. They are, in essence, projections. Projections born from the soul's own deepest recesses. Its unresolved regrets, its hidden burdens of guilt, its long-suppressed, unprocessed fears. The Tibetan Book of the Dead sternly warns that absolutely everything experienced within the bardo is a direct reflection of one's own consciousness. It is not an external judgment being imposed upon you. It is a deeply personal, internal confrontation. This is the critical juncture where the journey takes a perilous turn. Because the more fear takes root within the soul, the stronger and more vivid these terrifying illusions become. The bardo is far more than just a mere place of transition. It is a profound mirror. A mirror that unflinchingly reveals every single aspect of itself that the soul stubbornly refuses to confront. And for the vast majority of us, that raw, unfiltered reflection is simply unbearable. The true test, the ultimate trial, is about to begin. And what the soul perceives next will irrevocably determine its eternal fate. Initially, the visions possess an almost divine quality. The soul beholds breathtaking celestial landscapes, bathed in radiant light, populated by beings of pure, unwavering compassion. These luminous figures communicate not through spoken words, but their very presence emanates an overwhelming, all-encompassing sense of profound peace. Some individuals who have brushed against the veil in near-death experiences describe encountering what they believe to be benevolent angels, wise, enlightened masters, or even powerful gods. But the truth, often hidden beneath layers of interpretation, is far more nuanced. These beings are neither external saviors nor judgmental deities. They are, in their purest essence, manifestations of the soul's own highest potential, reflecting the radiant light of its own most pristine state. If the soul possesses the clarity to recognize this profound truth, it can transcend. But such recognition demands a level of inner clarity that is tragically elusive when the mind is clouded by the suffocating grip of fear. For those who have spent their earthly lives relentlessly chasing fleeting desires, gripped by the paralyzing fear of death, or desperately clinging to a fragile sense of identity, the initial benevolent illusions begin to subtly distort. The radiant beings may remain visible, but their forms begin to flicker and waver. The soul perceives them twisting and contorting in and out of recognizable shapes, as if the very fabric of reality is beginning to unravel before its very eyes. Then, just as swiftly as they materialized, these comforting visions begin to fade into nothingness. And in their place, the terrifying, wrathful visions begin to emerge. The Tibetan Book of the Dead chillingly describes this pivotal moment in disturbing detail. As the ethereal days drift by within the bardo, the initially comforting figures inexplicably vanish, replaced by dark, monstrous entities that defy comprehension. These terrifying beings inspire a level of primal fear far beyond anything the soul has ever encountered in its earthly existence. They bellow with inhuman voices that send shivers down the non-existent spine. Their faces are grotesquely twisted into expressions of pure, unadulterated rage and utter chaos. Some possess multiple heads that writhe independently. Others boast countless grasping arms or eyes that burn with an unholy, fiery intensity. They appear as nightmarish demons, cruel executioners, or relentless, inescapable pursuers. And their very presence strikes paralyzing fear deep into the core of the unprepared soul. This is the terrifying juncture where most souls succumb to sheer panic. They desperately run. They frantically plead for mercy. They scream out in utter terror. But there is no escape to be found. Because, crucially, there is nothing external to escape from. These horrifying figures are not genuine enemies lurking outside the confines of the mind. They are, in their terrifying reality, mere projections. Projections born from the soul's own unresolved fears. Its deeply buried guilt. Its long-forgotten regrets. Every single moment of deception, every act of cruelty, every instance of selfishness from the past life now takes on a horrifying, tangible form within the bardo, appearing as something external, something actively attacking. But the chilling truth is that the attack is entirely self-created. The overwhelming horror is entirely self-inflicted. And here's the most perilous aspect of this terrifying ordeal. The more desperately the soul fights against these nightmarish visions, the stronger and more vivid they become. Fear acts as fuel, feeding the illusion. Terror grants it immense power. The only true path to liberation lies not in futile flight, but in profound recognition. Those rare souls who manage to pierce through the veil of terror, who finally understand that these monstrous entities are nothing more than fleeting shadows cast by their own minds, witness them dissolve instantly, vanishing like morning mist burned away by the rising sun. The terrifying illusions crumble and disappear the very instant the soul ceases to believe in their independent reality. But tragically, almost no one grasps this crucial truth in time. They perceive only the horrifying nightmare, completely missing the invaluable lesson hidden deep within its terrifying embrace. This marks the second major, pivotal test of the afterlife journey. The first, as we explored, was the crucial act of recognizing the clear light, a profound test of pure awareness. The second, this terrifying encounter with wrathful visions, is a rigorous test of self-mastery. Those unfortunate souls who fail this critical trial are inexorably dragged further into the labyrinthine depths of the bardo, descending ever deeper into the intricate cycle of karma, utterly unable to break free from its relentless grip. For the vast majority of souls, this period of intense terror can last for what feels like weeks. The Book of the Dead solemnly states that by the third or fourth week of this extraordinary post-death journey, the soul reaches its next monumental challenge, a complete and utterly unavoidable review of its entire past life. And this time, there is absolutely nowhere to hide. There is no external judge presiding over your fate, no divine courtroom echoing with pronouncements, no higher being dictating your eternal destiny. What unfolds next is far more profound and far more terrifying in its stark intimacy. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes this extraordinary event as the Great Mirror, a pivotal moment when the soul is relentlessly forced to confront the full, unvarnished weight of its entire existence. At first, paradoxically, it might seem as though nothing is happening. The terrifying, wrathful illusions begin to gradually fade away, and for a fleeting moment, the soul might even experience a false sense of escape. But then, a new and utterly unique experience takes hold. One far more vivid, far more intensely real than anything encountered before. It is not merely a vision. It is not a dream. It is a complete and total reliving. The soul is inexorably pulled backward through the corridors of time, through every single action it ever took, every thought it ever conceived, every emotion it ever generated. But this is not a detached act of mere memory recall. It is a full, immersive experience. The soul doesn't simply remember what it did during its lifetime, it feels it all over again, with every fiber of its being. Every single moment of kindness it extended, every single act of cruelty it inflicted, every decision it made in the deepest secrecy is now felt completely. Not only from its own limited perspective, but also, incredibly, from the perspective of every single individual it ever affected. If you caused pain, you will now feel that pain as if it were your own, multiplied by the suffering of the other. If you brought joy, you will be flooded with that very same joy, resonating through your entire being. But there is no filter in this great mirror. No way to rationalize your past choices. No way to offer excuses. Everything is raw, immediate, and utterly undeniable. This is not a punishment being meted out by some external authority. This is simply the unvarnished truth. The soul is not being judged by some celestial being. It is, in essence, judging itself. The ancient Tibetan texts profoundly explain that for most souls, this experience is utterly agonizing. We spend our entire lives diligently avoiding taking full responsibility for our actions. We become masters of justifying our mistakes. We bury our guilt deep within the recesses of our subconscious. But in the stark reality of death, there is no place left to hide. You do not get the opportunity to explain away why you acted the way you did. You do not get to argue, deflect blame, or cleverly reason your way out of the consequences. You are simply left to feel. For a fortunate few, however, this profound experience can be one of utter bliss. Those rare souls who live their lives with genuine compassion, unwavering honesty, and profound wisdom are flooded with an overwhelming sense of peace. As every positive action they performed returns to them like radiant waves of pure light. But for the vast majority, it is a torment far beyond anything they could have possibly imagined in their earthly existence. Not because they are being subjected to some external punishment, but because the sheer weight of their own past actions crashes down upon them with an unbearable force. This is the reckoning, and it is utterly unavoidable. But here's where the revelations take an even more shocking turn. According to the profound wisdom of the Tibetan teachings, this profound life review doesn't just impact the past, it also critically shapes the future. By the time the soul has fully relived its entire earthly existence, it is no longer a neutral entity. It is deeply, profoundly conditioned by the intense emotions it has just re-experienced. If the soul emerges from this all-encompassing review still burdened by overwhelming guilt, lingering regret, or tenacious attachment to its past life, it will be inexorably drawn back into the relentless cycle of reincarnation. The heavier the emotional baggage it carries, the lower the realm it will be pulled back into. Some unfortunate souls are reborn into lives of immense suffering, abject poverty, and relentless struggle. Not as a result of some external, cosmic judgment, but because their own internal mental and emotional state actively pulls them towards such difficult circumstances. Unbelievably, the soul is making this crucial choice without even consciously realizing it. This is why the life review is far more than just a passive reflection of the past. It is a critical test. A test to determine if the soul possesses the capacity to truly let go. Can it genuinely accept its past without the clinging tendrils of attachment? Can it finally release the heavy burdens of regret, the paralyzing grip of fear, and the persistent pull of unfinished desires? Those rare souls who successfully navigate this intense trial move inexorably towards ultimate liberation. Those who tragically fail are doomed to be pulled back into yet another earthly life. Another physical body. Another agonizing cycle of struggle and eventual forgetting. This is the profound reason why spiritual traditions across the ages have emphasized the critical importance of diligently preparing for death long before its inevitable arrival. Because when that pivotal moment comes, when the great mirror is finally placed before you, what you see reflected back is no longer within your control. It has already been indelibly written by the very fabric of the life you have lived. And as the fourth or perhaps the fifth week unfolds within the enigmatic bardo, the final, ultimate test begins. The soul now stands at the precipice of its most critical choice, to finally break free from the endless cycle or to be reborn once more into the earthly realm. The bardo journey is nearing its end. The shimmering illusions have played their intricate tricks. The soul has been forced to confront its past, reliving every moment of joy, every pain of sorrow, every hidden thought that secretly shaped its existence. Now, after weeks of drifting through this liminal in-between state, the decisive moment of ultimate decision finally arrives. This is the final test. The one single trial that determines absolutely everything. In the profound wisdom of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, this crucial stage is described as the most critical and, simultaneously, the most incredibly difficult moment of all. The soul now finds itself standing at a profound crossroads. It must make a choice that will echo through eternity, either recognize the persistent illusions for what they truly are and shatter the cycle of rebirth forever, or succumb to its lingering desires and tragically fall back into the familiar, yet ultimately limiting, cycle of reincarnation. But here's the insidious problem: most souls, at this late stage, utterly fail to realize they are even making a choice. By this point in their post-death journey, the illusions have often become so incredibly overwhelming, so utterly convincing, that the soul barely retains any memory of even being in the bardo at all. The visions now take on a deceptive new form, one that feels profoundly different from everything encountered before. They are no longer the terrifying deities or the fragmented, unsettling hallucinations of earlier stages. Instead, they morph into something strangely familiar, deeply comforting, even intensely tempting. The ancient wisdom of the Book of the Dead sternly warns that in these final, crucial days, the soul will be subtly offered a seemingly easy way out. But it is a cleverly disguised trap. The soul begins to perceive vivid visions of beloved ones calling it back to the earthly realm. Familiar places from its past life materialize before its inner eye, radiating an irresistible warmth and a powerful sense of comforting nostalgia. The soul experiences a deep, almost unbearable longing. A powerful, magnetic pull towards something undeniably recognizable. But beware! These aren't merely random hallucinations. They are tantalizing glimpses of the very next life the soul is poised to enter. The intricate karmic forces have already begun their work, subtly shaping the conditions of the soul's impending return. If the soul succumbs to these seductive visions, if it allows itself to be drawn in by their irresistible allure, it is instantly, effortlessly swept into a brand new body, a brand new life. Another agonizing cycle of inevitable forgetting. Rebirth happens instantaneously. The process is utterly automatic. The very instant the soul latches onto a lingering desire, a deep-seated fear, or a tenacious attachment to its past existence, it is relentlessly pulled into a new womb, a new reality, with absolutely no conscious memory of the pivotal choice it has just unwittingly made. The Book of the Dead poignantly describes this as a descent into profound unconsciousness. A moment of deep, all-encompassing forgetfulness where the experiences of the previous life simply dissolve away, and a completely new one tragically begins. And so, the relentless cycle continues once more: birth, suffering, death, and the inevitable return to the bewildering bardo. But for the precious few souls who have diligently prepared for this ultimate test, the final stage unfolds in a dramatically different way. Those rare individuals who possess a genuine understanding of what is truly happening can see straight through the deceptive illusions. They recognize these tempting visions for what they are: mere projections of their own minds. Clever tricks designed to keep them perpetually trapped within the cycle. They do not succumb to the seductive comfort of past attachments, nor do they recoil in terror from imagined threats. They remain steadfastly still, profoundly aware, utterly detached. And in that extraordinary moment, something truly incredible happens. The persistent illusions finally collapse. The powerful karmic forces lose their tenacious grip. The relentless pull towards rebirth simply fades away. And the liberated soul, finally free from the shackles of attachment and the paralyzing grip of fear, transcends the endless cycle completely. This, my friends, is what the enlightened Tibetan masters reverently call liberation. It is not a physical place, not a conventional heaven, not an afterlife in the limited way most people conceive of it. It is simply a profound awakening, an awakening to the fundamental truth of what was always, inherently there. A timeless state of being that lies beyond the fleeting illusions of the material world, beyond the limiting constructs of duality, beyond the pervasive realm of suffering. But tragically, almost no one manages to reach this ultimate state of freedom, because to do so requires something that the vast majority of people never even begin to prepare for: conscious awareness at the precise moment of death. The crucial ability to recognize the cleverly disguised trap before it irrevocably closes. And this, my friends, is the profound reason why, for over 1,000 long years, these transformative teachings were deliberately hidden. Because if the masses truly understood the profound truth about death, it would irrevocably change absolutely everything. The next crucial stage of this incredible journey isn't just about what mysteriously happens after we die. It's about the deeply unsettling question of why this liberating knowledge was actively forbidden for so many centuries. For over 1,000 long years, these potent teachings were deliberately locked away, solely reserved for the most advanced spiritual practitioners, hidden from the ordinary masses, even actively censored by powerful religious institutions. Even in our supposedly enlightened modern era, the vast majority of people have never even heard of them. And there is a very deliberate reason for this carefully guarded secrecy. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, in its raw and unfiltered truth, was never intended for the uninitiated, ordinary mind. It was considered far too potent, far too potentially dangerous for those who lacked the necessary inner preparation. Because if people truly, deeply understood what actually happens after death, it would shatter the very foundations of their carefully constructed beliefs. It would dismantle their ingrained fears. It would utterly transform their entire perception of reality. Just think about it for a moment. If death is not the definitive end, If it is not a punishment divinely inflicted, if there is no ultimate, external judgment awaiting us, then what happens to the intricate control systems that have been meticulously built upon those very ideas? Religions, in their traditional forms, would crumble. Governments would lose a significant portion of their power. The very fabric of society, as we currently understand it, would begin to unravel. For centuries, powerful religious institutions have tirelessly preached about the rewards of a heavenly afterlife and the terrifying punishments of hell. They have emphasized the absolute necessity of obeying higher authorities to secure a coveted place in that promised afterlife. These carefully crafted narratives serve a very specific purpose: control. If people firmly believe that some external, all-powerful force will dictate their eternal fate after death, they are far more likely to diligently follow prescribed rules, obediently conform to societal norms, and live in constant fear of divine retribution. But what if the profound truth is that no one is actually judging you in the afterlife except for yourself? What if the post-death experience isn't about external punishment or reward, but simply about your own consciousness reflecting back at you the unvarnished reality of the life you have lived? This powerful knowledge was deliberately kept hidden because its widespread understanding would utterly destroy the deeply ingrained idea that salvation comes from some external source. It would force individuals to confront something far more personally challenging, perhaps even terrifying: the stark realization that they are, and always have been, fully and solely responsible for their own eternal fate. And that's not the full extent of this suppressed knowledge. Remarkably, modern science is now beginning to cautiously confirm certain aspects of these ancient, often dismissed, teachings. Near-death experiences, those profound journeys to the very edge of life and back, are consistently filled with eerily similar descriptions that echo the wisdom of the Bardo. Individuals report witnessing the same radiant clear light, experiencing a comprehensive review of their entire life, feeling an overwhelming sense of profound peace or, conversely, intense fear, directly correlated to the nature of their actions during their earthly existence. Even cutting-edge research in the realm of quantum physics is tentatively beginning to suggest that consciousness might not be solely confined to the physical brain, that it may, in fact, persist beyond the cessation of bodily functions, that it might even operate outside the conventional limitations of time and space. For centuries, this profound knowledge was conveniently dismissed as mere superstition and fanciful folklore. But now, incredibly, the long-separated lines between ancient spiritual wisdom and groundbreaking modern science are starting to subtly blur. So, the crucial question remains: why don't more people know about these potentially life-altering truths? The answer, it seems, lies within the very structure of the society we inhabit. The system, in many ways, is subtly designed to keep you perpetually distracted, to relentlessly focus your attention on the fleeting allure of the material world, on the endless pursuit of temporary pleasures, on the manipulation of meaningless fears, to keep you tirelessly chasing after money, fleeting status, and the elusive validation of others. The ultimate goal? To ensure that by the time the inevitable moment of death finally arrives, you are utterly unprepared for the profound journey that lies ahead. The biggest, most pervasive lie ever told about death is that it remains an impenetrable mystery. But it's not a mystery at all. The enlightened Tibetan masters meticulously mapped out its intricate terrain over 1,000 years ago. They possessed a deep, profound understanding that the initial 49 days after death follow a precise, discernible structure. That the individual mind, incredibly, actively shapes its own unique afterlife experience. That conscious awareness is the only true key to ultimate freedom. And yet, tragically, almost no one in our modern world is actively preparing for this most significant of all transitions. Because the real, carefully guarded secret is this: if you are not consciously aware in your everyday life, you will most certainly not be consciously aware in death. And that fundamental lack of awareness means the relentless cycle of birth, suffering, and death will tragically repeat itself over and over again. But for those rare individuals who manage to grasp this profound truth, for those who bravely begin the essential work of preparation right now, while they still have breath in their lungs, there exists another, far more liberating path. What comes next in this crucial exploration is even more vital to understand. If this ancient knowledge holds true, then the most pressing question isn't simply about the intricate details of what happens after death. It's about whether the vast majority of us are already failing the ultimate test entirely. If the profound wisdom of the Tibetan Book of the Dead is indeed accurate, then most of us are already tragically doomed to repeat this endless cycle. Not because we inherently lack strength or because we are somehow unworthy of liberation, but simply because we are living our lives utterly, completely unprepared for the most significant event of our existence. Just take a moment to truly look around you. How many people do you know who spend even a fraction of their precious time genuinely contemplating death, let alone actively preparing for its inevitable arrival? Modern society, with its relentless distractions and superficial pursuits, has effectively conditioned us to fear death, to actively ignore its existence, to childishly pretend it won't happen to us for a very long time. We relentlessly distract ourselves with endless work, fleeting entertainment, the relentless pursuit of money, and a myriad of other ultimately meaningless pleasures. All the while, deep down, we all know that one day our time will inevitably come. And when it does, the vast majority of us will be just as lost, just as confused, and just as tragically caught in the same ancient trap as the countless billions who have come before us. Blinded by our ignorance, confused by the unfamiliar terrain, and ensnared by the very illusions that could have set us free. Because the ultimate test, the true examination of our souls, doesn't actually happen after death. It is happening right here, right now, in the very fabric of our daily lives. The bardo isn't just some distant, ethereal place in the afterlife. It is a profound state of mind. The very same deceptive illusions that will ensnare the unprepared soul in death are already actively deceiving us in our waking lives. The paralyzing fear that drives unprepared souls to desperately flee from the terrifying, wrathful visions in the bardo. It's the very same fear that subtly controls the actions and limits the potential of countless individuals every single day. The tenacious attachment that relentlessly pulls souls back into the cycle of reincarnation after death. It's the very same clinging to material possessions, fleeting fame, and ultimately empty temporary pleasures that keeps so many people trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction and endless striving throughout their lives. The fundamental inability to recognize the illusory nature of post-death experiences. It's the very same blindness that prevents people from questioning the manufactured realities presented to them in life, from ever truly seeing through the pervasive societal conditioning. If you are not consciously aware in this very moment, you will most certainly not magically become consciously aware after death. This is the stark, uncompromising truth that explains why so few souls ever truly escape the relentless cycle. The Book of the Dead profoundly teaches that the very same ingrained habits, the persistent fears, and the relentless desires that shape our daily lives here on Earth will also inevitably shape the landscape of our experiences after we die. Those who live their lives in a state of unconscious ignorance will tragically die in that same state of unconscious ignorance. Those who are relentlessly controlled by fear in life will undoubtedly be controlled by that same paralyzing fear in death. And those who spend their earthly existence chasing fleeting illusions will tragically continue chasing those very same illusions long after their physical bodies have ceased to function. The cycle is relentless. It is perfectly, subtly designed to keep us trapped in its seemingly unbreakable grip. And the most unsettling part of this entire equation? We are, in essence, doing it all to ourselves. But here's the profound truth that the vast majority will sadly never grasp. This seemingly unbreakable cycle is not, in fact, unbreakable. The enlightened Tibetan masters, in their boundless compassion, left behind these extraordinary teachings for a very specific reason. So that the precious few who are truly ready can finally awaken from this deep slumber. And the very first, absolutely crucial step on this path to liberation is to bravely begin to see the true nature of reality for what it truly is. Most people, however, will sadly continue living their lives exactly as they always have. They will stubbornly tell themselves that they have plenty of time to think about such morbid topics as death later. That right now, there are far more important things to focus their limited attention on. And then, in the blink of an eye, their earthly life will be over. And they will find themselves thrust into the bewildering bardo, just as lost, just as confused, and just as utterly unprepared as every single soul who has gone before them. But for those courageous individuals who choose to wake up now, who bravely begin the essential work of breaking free from this relentless cycle before it's too late, absolutely everything begins to fundamentally change. Because true preparation for the profound transition of death does not magically happen after death. It must be diligently cultivated while you are still here, fully embodied in this earthly realm. And this essential preparation has absolutely nothing to do with blind adherence to rigid religious dogma or the empty performance of meaningless rituals. It is, at its core, about cultivating genuine awareness. About bravely learning to see the pervasive illusions for what they truly are. About courageously breaking free from the deeply ingrained fears, the tenacious desires, and the fragile, ultimately false identities that keep us perpetually trapped, not just in this fleeting earthly life, but in the potentially endless cycle of lives to come. Because the fundamental question is no longer simply what happens after death. The far more urgent and profound question we must ask ourselves is, are we already living as if we are, in essence, already dead to the true nature of reality? The vast majority will likely move on from this profound revelation and quickly forget everything they have just learned. They will eagerly return to their familiar distractions, their comfortable routines, their subtly programmed existence. But the precious few who have truly understood the gravity of these ancient teachings will know, deep within their hearts, that this very moment represents a critical turning point. But now, an even more urgent question arises. If the way we live our current lives so profoundly determines what awaits us when we die, then how exactly do we effectively prepare for that ultimate transition? How do we bravely escape this seemingly endless cycle before it's irrevocably too late? The answer, surprisingly, is far simpler than you might imagine. If death is, in essence, the final examination, then life itself is the comprehensive study guide. But the tragic problem is that the vast majority of people don't even realize they are being constantly tested. They live their lives as if earthly existence will stretch on indefinitely. As if death is some distant, abstract event that won't actually concern them for a very, very long time. And then, one day, inevitably, it does. The enlightened Tibetan masters wisely taught that the only true way to be consciously aware in the profound transition of death is to diligently cultivate conscious awareness in your everyday life right now. If you spend your precious earthly existence relentlessly running away from the deeper realities, desperately distracting yourself with fleeting, superficial pleasures, and actively avoiding the often uncomfortable process of deep self-reflection, then when the inevitable moment of death finally arrives, you will be utterly, completely unprepared. You will instinctively cling to your fragile sense of identity, to your deeply ingrained fears, to your unresolved regrets, and in doing so, you will be relentlessly pulled back into the familiar cycle of rebirth, lost in the shimmering veils of illusion once again. But thankfully, there exists another, far more liberating path. The very first crucial step towards genuinely preparing for death is the cultivation of detachment. Not in the sense of coldly rejecting the vibrant tapestry of life, but in the profound understanding of not being controlled by its fleeting whims and desires. The vast majority of people live their lives as virtual slaves to their relentless desires. They tirelessly chase after money, the fleeting validation of others, ephemeral status, and often turbulent relationships, foolishly believing that these external things will somehow bestow lasting happiness. But the profound truth revealed by the Bardo teachings is that in that intermediate realm, none of these earthly pursuits hold any lasting significance whatsoever. The only thing that ultimately determines your post-death fate is the fundamental state of your own consciousness. The more intensely attached you are to the ever-changing material world, the exponentially harder it will be to release its grip when the time comes. And the more desperately you cling, the more likely you are to be tragically reborn into yet another life of struggle, another agonizing cycle of inevitable forgetting. However, cultivating detachment does not necessitate abandoning all worldly pursuits and retreating into isolated asceticism. True detachment lies in mastering your own mind, in diligently learning to control your thoughts and emotions, rather than allowing them to relentlessly control you. It involves cultivating a deep, unwavering understanding that absolutely nothing in this earthly realm is truly permanent. Not your physical body, which is constantly aging and decaying. Not your material possessions, which are ultimately transient. Not even your deeply cherished sense of identity, which is merely a collection of ever-shifting experiences and beliefs. And once you genuinely, viscerally grasp this fundamental impermanence, the paralyzing fear of death will begin to lose its powerful hold on your consciousness. The crucial second step on this path to liberation is the diligent cultivation of awareness. The bardo, as we have explored, is a treacherous realm of pervasive illusions. But the shocking truth is that your current waking life is also, in many ways, a realm of illusions. Everything you perceive, everything you believe to be true, is ultimately a projection of your own mind, subtly shaped by layers of societal conditioning, deeply ingrained fears, and the constant barrage of external influences. If you do not actively learn to see through these pervasive illusions now, while you still possess the precious gift of conscious embodiment, you will most certainly not possess the clarity to see through the far more deceptive illusions that await you in the bardo. The ancient practices of meditation, introspective self-inquiry, and deep, contemplative reflection are not merely esoteric religious rituals. They are, in their essence, powerful tools for breaking free from these self-imposed limitations. They are the essential training for the ultimate final test that awaits every single one of us. In the same way that a dedicated athlete rigorously trains their physical body in preparation for a demanding competition, so too must the discerning mind be diligently trained before it faces the profound and often bewildering landscape of the afterlife. Because in that extraordinary realm, your very thoughts possess the power to instantly shape your immediate reality. If you have spent your earthly life habitually reacting to the world with ingrained fear, persistent doubt, and pervasive confusion, then that is precisely what will consume you in the bardo. But if you have diligently cultivated inner clarity, unwavering presence, and profound detachment in your daily existence, then in the bardo, you will possess the crucial ability to recognize the deceptive illusions for exactly what they are. You will not be driven by blind panic. You will not desperately cling to fleeting comforts. You will remain steadfastly still, profoundly aware, and ultimately, gloriously free. And that, my friends, is the fundamental difference between those who manage to finally escape the relentless cycle and those who remain tragically trapped within its seemingly unbreakable hold. The vital third and final step on this path to liberation is the profound cultivation of acceptance. Death is not something to be feared as a terrifying unknown, nor is it something to be actively avoided in your thoughts and conversations. It is, in its ultimate reality, the single most important moment of your entire existence. The pivotal instant when everything is finally, irrevocably revealed. If you live your current life in constant fear of death's inevitable arrival, then you will undoubtedly be ruled by that same paralyzing fear in the post-death realms. But if you bravely embrace death as the natural, inevitable transition that it truly is, you will approach its arrival with a sense of profound peace and quiet anticipation, rather than debilitating panic and utter dread. The enlightened ancient masters dedicated their entire earthly lives to diligently preparing for this ultimate moment. Not because they possessed some morbid obsession with death itself, but because they possessed a deep, intuitive understanding that life and death are not separate, opposing forces. They are merely two sides of the same fundamental coin. One cannot be truly mastered without a profound understanding of the other. And that, my friends, is a significant part of why modern society often subtly discourages deep contemplation of death. Because a world full of individuals who no longer fear death is also, inevitably, a world full of individuals who can no longer be easily controlled by fear-based narratives and manipulative power structures. If you have managed to grasp the profound implications of these ancient teachings, then you are already fundamentally different from the vast majority of humanity. You are already beginning to awaken from the deep slumber of unconsciousness. But there is still one more absolutely crucial truth that you must understand, because everything we have discussed so far, everything about the bardo, about the pervasive illusions, about the possibility of finally breaking free, will remain ultimately meaningless unless you deeply internalize this final, liberating secret. The vast majority of people will sadly never actively prepare for death. They will continue to navigate their earthly existence blindly, relentlessly consumed by fleeting distractions, tirelessly chasing after shimmering illusions, and constantly gripped by a deep-seated fear of the very things they fail to understand. And when the inevitable moment of transition finally arrives, they will be unceremoniously thrust into the bewildering landscape of the bardo, utterly confused, profoundly lost, and tragically unprepared, mirroring the very state of unconsciousness that defined their earthly lives. But here, finally, is the ultimate, liberating truth. Death does not fundamentally change who you are, it merely, ruthlessly reveals who you have always been. The Tibetan Book of the Dead does not describe a conventional afterlife in the limited way that most people typically imagine it. It does not promise a simplistic paradise for the good and a fiery hell for the wicked. It does not impose external judgment upon anyone. Because the bardo is not some external, geographically defined location. It is, in its profound reality, the ultimate mirror of your own individual consciousness. Everything you will experience after death, the radiant clear light, the serene, peaceful deities, the terrifying, wrathful illusions, the comprehensive life review, and the powerful, magnetic pull towards inevitable reincarnation, is nothing more and nothing less than a direct reflection of the very mind you diligently cultivated, or tragically neglected, during your precious earthly existence. If you lived your life primarily driven by fear, you will undoubtedly die in a state of fear. If you were deeply attached to the transient material world, you will die desperately clinging to what is already irrevocably gone. If you navigated your earthly existence in a state of unconsciousness, blindly reacting to external stimuli without any deep self-awareness, you will tragically drift through the post-death realms in that same state of unconsciousness, endlessly reacting, desperately grasping, and inevitably falling back into the relentless cycle of rebirth. But if you bravely chose to live your life with conscious awareness, if you diligently trained your mind to see through the pervasive illusions of the material world, if you actively prepared yourself for the ultimate transition while you still possess the precious gift of life, then in the bardo, you will possess the crucial ability to recognize its true nature for what it is, a profound test, a necessary transition, and ultimately, a powerful opportunity for final liberation. And that, my friends, is the profound secret that has been carefully hidden for over 1,000 long years. The real reason these transformative teachings were often forbidden. Because if the masses truly understood this fundamental truth, they would instantly cease to fear death's inevitable arrival. They would stop wasting their precious lives on the relentless pursuit of things that ultimately hold no lasting significance. They would finally break free from the manipulative control of false beliefs, outdated religious dogma, and fear-mongering governments that thrive on the ignorance and unconsciousness of the populace. A person who truly understands the nature of death is, ultimately, a person who cannot be easily manipulated. Because once you genuinely see the truth, once you deeply understand that this fleeting earthly life is, in its essence, merely a period of crucial preparation for the profound journey that lies beyond, absolutely everything begins to fundamentally change. The way you think shifts dramatically. The way you act in the world transforms completely. You no longer relentlessly chase after temporary, ultimately empty pleasures or engage in meaningless distractions. You no longer live in constant fear of loss, because you finally understand that nothing truly belonged to you in the first place. You no longer desperately cling to a fragile sense of identity, because you realize its inherent impermanence, its ultimate lack of enduring reality. And when that inevitable moment finally arrives, when you take your final breath and bravely cross the mysterious threshold into the unknown, you will not succumb to blind panic. You will not desperately grasp at what you are leaving behind. You will not be relentlessly pulled back into the agonizing cycle of forgetting. You will simply, profoundly, be aware. And in that state of clear, unwavering awareness, you will finally possess a genuine choice. A real, unencumbered choice to break free from the endless cycle once and for all, or to consciously choose to return to the earthly realm for reasons that transcend mere unconscious habit. Tragically, the vast majority will never reach this pivotal point of conscious choice. They will likely move on from this profound video, quickly return to their familiar routines and distractions, and sadly forget everything they have just learned. And when their own inevitable moment of transition arrives, they will be utterly unprepared. But you, having journeyed this far, do not have to follow that same unconscious path. If these ancient teachings have resonated deeply within you, then you are already fundamentally different from most. You are already actively seeking a deeper understanding. And that is precisely why we delve even deeper into these profound mysteries inside Insights Academy, where we fearlessly reveal the transformative knowledge that cannot be openly shared here. Join our community of conscious seekers now via the link nestled in the description below and receive your complimentary copy of the Kalin, because ultimately, the state of your own mind is the single most powerful force that determines what truly happens next. But everything you have just learned, every profound insight we have explored, will remain ultimately useless unless you deeply understand this final, crucial truth. A truth that has been whispered in hushed tones, perhaps even deliberately hidden within the classified pages of secret government documents. A truth that unveils the profound realities of what happens after death in ways that even the ancient wisdom of the Tibetan Book of the Dead could not fully articulate. Click on the video you now see appearing right here to finally discover what they never wanted you to know. And if this video has resonated deeply within your soul, please let us know by simply commenting "I understood it."